Okay, we're recording. All right, so we'll kick it off with the first one, which is how have your RP meetings been going? And in particular, what have you been hearing from schools about group mentoring in response to proposals to bring group mentoring to schools? So maybe if someone wants to start, then y'all can just pass it around, popcorn it to someone else. And I'll mute and just take notes.
I can kick it off here in Philly. They've been really good. Finished all of them, and it's always rewarding to have these meetings because to reflect on a year and just see like where the relationship is headed. And all of them said yes to hybrid mentoring, so that was a really big win right there. But the other key aspect was just like how just getting their insight because a lot of the partners were already problem solving and troubleshooting and thinking about how to coordinate things. For example, in Philly, we're thinking about doing a couple of regional groups, and some of them are already like, okay, we could probably accommodate them, and if we just have X, Y, and Z. So that was like really good to see that from the groups, from the partner schools about the groups. So just sent out like a follow-up email about sending the curriculum because a lot of them were curious about like what we will be talking about in the groups. But for the most part, it's been like really positive reactions to it, and we're able to also talk about things about the process at the school as well. So we were able to accomplish a lot of things in all the meetings. Oh, I was supposed to pass it off. Hermione.
Yeah, so Martina and I have split up, we split all the schools we work with here in Boston, and so I have a number of schools that I'm reaching out to and have been going through them. We have been doing group mentoring at some schools, and at some schools are rolling it out. So cool to hear feedback around which schools feel like they can do it. All schools want it. It's just whether or not schools feel like they can get enough students to enroll and to stick with it. So that's been cool. It's been really cool to hear their feedback around what can be improved with our program, what they feel like works. Also cool to hear when I share updates or potential updates here, cool to hear their like pushback or support for certain things. So that's been nice. Is there anything else in specific that I should share about the debriefs? Like what, or just kind of like generally? Question mark.
I guess if there are themes that have come up in the feedback, either feedback or excitement, that might be interesting here.
So one, totally really cool to hear in Philly that all your schools are saying they're interested. Here we're getting the same thing from all the schools we want to talk to. They're all down. Either they are interested but they can't host, and so they're willing to send their kids, or they are interested, willing to host, and ready to to pick as many kids as possible. And getting principal support has been really helpful with that in some cases. And realizing also that at some of our schools, guidance counselors are like ex officio, like assistant headmasters at some schools. But yeah, it looks like we're gonna have. Really, things haven't exactly landed, or we don't know where things are gonna land just yet with groups. It's looking like we'll have everything as planned, and so that's good. But yeah, everything's kind of up in the air here because we're still figuring out like who will be the mentors for the groups and all that kind of stuff. But schools are excited, and yeah, I think people are feeling excited about what's to come. So go us. Oh, one thing I will say that has been really interesting that's come up, and Martina sent out an email to some other folks about this because of this coming up so many times. But in Massachusetts and in Boston, we have a ton of organizations that are trying to steal our swag, I guess is the quickest way to say it. Like they do similar things. They don't do anything they don't do it all together like Summer Search has been doing for 20 years. A lot of these organizations have been around for 4 or 5 years. They're like the pet project of like a venture capitalist who's interested in closing, dealing with equity. But it causes for confusion when we are signing kids up for the program, and it also causes for confusion with the schools because they have all these different mentor programs that are trying to get the same kids. So it's been making me think that summer search really has to make our stamp and like figure out what we do and do it really well if we don't want to get like boxed out by these emerging programs. So it's like a little bit like exciting to be, to be a part of an organization that's been doing it for a while. But hearing principals say pretty frankly, like, what's the difference between you and 2.0 and build on and possible project, and then me being able to explain it confidently. But yeah, I'd like to have all of us on the same page about that. So that's Armani from Boston, and I'll pass it to Donaciano. Chano, excuse me. Can't hear you, boss. Maybe I can pass it to Martina while we wait for Chano to get this audio together.
Okay. I don't have too much different from Armani. Most of our partners are excited and talking to their principals before school gets out on Thursday so they can get like a head start on that. We had plans for a couple of schools to do a co-location model, and one of our bigger schools shut that down. So we're trying to go back and just regroup to figure out another configuration, since they didn't want to participate in that. But other than that, co-sign everything Armani has already said. Oh, I'll pass it off to Bradley because it looks like Chano is still working on tech.
All right. Hello, y'all. For we don't spring, we just send emails, so we haven't. We normally do our kickoff meetings in terms of what we're going to be looking for next year, and starting like in September, August. So we haven't met with them yet, so nothing to report there. But in the Bay Area, we're pretty much chilling. We're doing the regional program strategy work, as mentioned before, and that's going along. I don't have any updates for y'all today, but should by next month. That's about it. I don't know if y'all have any particular questions, but Tano, I don't know. Would you add anything there?
Besides, I mean, we're just really analyzing our data at this point. So we're working with kind of figuring out what the narratives are at each school, which is kind of interesting and also a little frightening to see what comes out of that. But yeah, I mean, I think we're locked and loaded to start off this next outreach season, pretty poised to be in a good position with a lot of the schools that we're working in.
Oh, I would also add, my bad, y'all. I forgot. We also, like as I mentioned, doing the revisions for the nomination and presentation. So we met as a group. We had a team brainstorm about ideas of how to make the presentation more engaging, more informative, more convincing for young folks to kind of get involved with the programming. And then we also had a brainstorm around how to make the nomination process more inclusive and to really get as many kids in the door as we possibly can. So that was really rich. We're on moving to action steps now. So that's kind of why I mentioned the application. So that's about it.
Thanks, y'all. I think that's everyone we have on the phone. I had two quick follow-up questions for Boston. Martina, you mentioned the school pulled out of shut down the plans for co-location, and I was just curious the reason, just because I know a lot of our other sites are pursuing that model too.
This particular school was the O'Brien. It's a pretty large school. And she just said for the first year of doing this there, they didn't want to also have to manage and facilitate having other students physically in the building, and that they'd be open to it in the future, but wanted to, kind of start the journey off with just O'Brien students.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't know if you all want to get into this now, Bay Area, but if you wanted to add a little bit more about how you're thinking about making nominations more inclusive and presentations more engaging, we can talk about that now, or we can talk about that later when we talk about the different pilots for fiscal year 20.
Sorry, I missed the. Was that directed towards Bay Area?
Yeah, I wondered if you all had more details about if you have landed somewhere as a team about how you want to make your nominations more inclusive and your presentations more engaging, or if you're still figuring out those details.
We're still figuring out some details, but I definitely want to give a shout out to Boston, to Martina. She sent me along a nomination forms that they use in terms of like a Google Doc of like alumni, college success, and current summer searchers. So that was a big help in getting us in the right direction. But yeah, we're thinking about doing like any kid in summer search can nominate anybody they know in 10th grade, obviously at our partner schools, at our 30 partner schools. Our alumni and college success students can do the same thing, not just their siblings, because that's how it's been typically. So if they know someone through a friend, they can nominate someone. We're also going to be looking at CBO nominations. So I think we're going to try to identify a community-based organization within each of our regions. That's probably around like 6 to 8 regions in which we're going to try and partner with CBO so that they can also nominate young folks at our partner schools. And then lastly, we're going to, when we present to young folks at schools, if they know a person that hasn't been nominated or not in that room, they can nominate that person. So a nominated sophomore can nominate another sophomore, essentially. So that's what we're trying to do to open this up more and not just have, spread the wealth and spread the keys to the door. Because I feel like oftentimes the referral partners have had those keys. And that's brought up some problematic things in terms of who's in the room and is it a reflection of the demographic of the community that we're serving. Trina, would you add anything?
No, we're also just going to be more intentional, just connecting with like more than just our referral partners on who gets nominated. So I think we're also being very, basically at any moment we can, we're talking about it with current students, previous students, and also families, so that we can get a bigger pool of of nominations. Last year we had a ton of nominations after the fact, which was like kind of hard to be able to navigate. So we're being very intentional, putting it up in the forefront of people's minds.
Thanks. I captured those details in the notes for other sites. Is this, Boston, does this reflect your approach to nominations too? Is it as broad as what Bay Area is considering?
Yes. We have the only addition is we have 2 CBO partners that we actually do a presentation at, but our other 2 CBO partners just do nominations. But yeah, it's essentially the same.
Okay. Yeah, it makes me think about if this is something that both of your sites are doing next year, if this is one of the 3 pilots we want to consider, where you just do what you're doing and we just are capturing what you're learning and how that informs what the actual impact is on the pipeline of students that come into the program. So I don't know if we can talk about that in a minute when we talk about the pilots, but it could be good learning if both sites are doing it this year. Tolu, what about for Philly? How is this similar or different to your all's nomination process?
I guess we were going to go more about the same, but I wanted to like thought partner with other sites or just like hear more about like how you guys are doing, which has been helpful to hear, because at least more so than ever this year, just realizing that we could be doing more and just seeing maybe like teachers are sometimes a barrier for like the students that we're trying to serve. Because there's a lot of students who are like friends of people who get nominated, just like, why wasn't I like called into the room, right? And I'm also wondering too, like on paper and everything from what I know from you, like, you should have had that opportunity. So just like part of it, it's like also maybe renorming, or I guess renorm is not the right phrase, but connecting more with the teachers who are nominating and understanding like we're not here to like cherry pick like the best students. Like we understand that yes, we're talking about follow through, but at the same time, like um, we can support a lot of different types of students, and having to like rename that so that they can like go at it in a different approach. But also like friend nominations is like something that we're trying to like do this year possibly, because the students, at least the older ones, know like students who like would be great fits in the program in the younger classes.
Yeah, so it sounds like you're interested in this totally for this year and learning from the other sites, and also like adding the layer of reconnecting with teachers or nominators to redefine the criteria.
If anything, I think the maybe like peer nomination will be something we'll like strongly consider.
Okay.
Could I throw out one thing on that, the note that Tolu just made? So one thing Armani and I have both been doing in our debriefs is asking if there's an opportunity. So I don't know if other districts do this, but in Boston, teachers come back 2 weeks before school starts, and they have PD for those 2 weeks. And so we've been asking each of our school partners, is there a time at some point in those 2 weeks where we can come address the staff for 15 to 30 minutes? And part of that request is so that we can help reconfigure their perceptions about what students should and shouldn't be, because I think when it is coming through third party, like another staff member who might have their own perceptions versus coming directly from us, that probably like creates additional barriers in school. So I don't know if that's possible, but that's one way we're trying to get at that here.
And that would be new for you this year?
I think so. In my 4 years, we've asked every year, but we haven't asked as early as Armani and I are doing this year. So
okay, I know we're missing the perspectives of New York and Seattle, but maybe we can make time to hear from them in our next call, or get their input, get them to add some thoughts to these notes after the call. Okay, well, I think this like segues into the next conversation. So last outreach cohort call, we started talking about, I sent that overview document that kind of summarized what we learned from the Males of Color Initiative, from group mentoring, what we discussed last year. And in our conversation last time, it seemed like there were two like FY20 needs that rose to the top. Recognizing that we want to make a couple changes in FY20 to outreach across the board, but that over the next few years, you still want to come together as an outreach cohort in person to make recommendations for a strategy that'll take us over the next few years. So this doesn't include everything, but it's just like the top two things that you all said you wanted to change for FY20. And those two things were application enhancements, specifically moving to an online application, and also the option to remove the income requirements from the application, because that's been a barrier to students applying. So that was one like change that everybody wanted for 20. And then the other one was making changes to the parent-student facing website. And we talked about a couple of specific things: updating the content, adding a translation feature to the content, adding the link to the video that Brendan's working with everyone on, and then adding a link to the online application. So, so those are the two like across the board changes that surfaced in that conversation. And we also talked about a couple of site-specific pilots that y'all would run and we would learn from. And then if it worked in your site, we would be able to implement those things in 21 and beyond based on what came out. So I know at the time, Bay Area, you mentioned, Bradley, just like briefly, wasn't confirmed yet, that you were considering not having interviews. So that could be a possible pilot. This point around broadening nominations, that could be a pilot. In New York, they are similarly talking about a experiential component of the presentation process, where instead of having just like an application workshop, it's actually an activity like maybe part of the group mentoring curriculum, something experiential so students can walk away with taking something away from it and also really having a sense of what summer search is. So anyway, in this part of our discussion, I just wanted to reach consent and I guess consensus about these being the recommendations we have for 20, because on Thursday, we're going to have a conversation with the PSLs to bring them in on this. I'm going to send an email in advance, but then we'll talk about this and make sure and try to get consent with that group too, that these feel like the right things to do for outreach in FY20, knowing there are budget implications and other initiatives happening. So yeah, I'd love to hear from y'all. Does this feel like it reflects our conversation? Has there been changes or new thinking since we met about this? Yeah, this is a chance to confirm or poke holes and modify these recommendations.
So for the financial piece, it came up a couple of times at our RP meetings as like what we mentioned before as a barrier. So when we say that, are we just gonna like how are we gonna do that? Like how's it gonna look? Like are we just gonna take it off? We don't ask it, or are we gonna like one RP said like just taking the table off would be helpful, and just have them just send tax information, because like a lot of students just like disqualify themselves based off of that. But just like wondering like how is that going to look? That's just more details. Like I'm all for it because I do see it as a barrier, but like I just want to know like how's that going to like shake out? Like how? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we can talk about some options. One thing that came up, I brought this to the NAPT department leads, and one thing that came up was, or one option could be that we don't require any income other than students checking a box that say they meet the requirement. We don't require any supplemental information in the application process. But later, once they're enrolled and they are, before their trip, once they have a relationship with Summer Search, then we collect that information to support them in their post-secondary process. And also, it's an important data point for development too in communicating our student population to donors. So there's like a recognition that we need that information at some point, but that because of what we've seen in outreach the last 5 years, it's a big barrier to getting students to apply. But there may be concerns about that, because what if a student indicates that they are like eligible, and then actually they get the paperwork from their parents and they find out, oh, they are over income. So that plan also comes with a need for everybody to commit to like, okay, we commit to like serving 10% or 15% of students outside of the, that income level. What are other thoughts on this? How we could approach this one?
I am just going to be open and admit that this is one that I'm stuck on, not because I disagree that it's a barrier, because it definitely is, but because Boston Public Schools does universal free and reduced lunch, and every year we always have students who either they don't know their income situation until their parents give them the info to submit to us, or it's just folks just trying to like surpass the fact that there's like an income requirement. My only worry, I haven't been able to come up with like a possible solution. I guess my main concern is just making sure that we don't have kids who, like we had a kid who was a 2-person household, mom was a cop, and they had $100,000 income, and he still applied, and we didn't find that out until we got the income documentation. So my only concern is just making sure that those type of situations aren't going to like overtake other students who have from what I would perceive a higher level of need, at least here in Boston, because of how things are set up. So again, that's not me offering a solution. It's just like the concern that I want to at some point try and figure out to be able to support removal of this barrier.
I saw a lot of nodding. Martina, do other sites share that or people share that same concern?
Yeah, I mean, I think in the like Bay Area, it seems to be more in the East Bay where we have access to who's on the free and reduced lunch, and it seems like North Bay schools are a lot more protective of their list. So it's kind of hard to if we do remove income guidelines, like we've had students in the North Bay apply with 110,000 as an income for a family of three. For me, it's like the income guidelines is, I think, I mean, as much as like I don't like the income guidelines that we currently have, I think it's a way to really be able to like separate who we can serve and who we shouldn't be serving. But yeah, I mean, I think we can be proactive in finding a way to make it easier where it's not necessarily getting the tax information, but I don't know how. But yeah, I think I agree. I think it's like we want to be able to screen out those 100, or even in many cases like 80K and above students that are a family of three.
I wonder how much of our funding is tied to our serving federally free reduced lunch students. It sounds like when you, Alex, spoke to folks, like I don't know, I guess when you were speaking to folks, I would have imagined folks to say like, hell no, we have to get the information up front because we need to know that all of our students are low income to get the money that we are getting. But it sounds like that's not, like it might not be the case, or it's less so. Yeah, what's your sense about that, Alex? And then like, how much is our funding tied to like the incomes of students that we? Because I'm thinking if I know in Boston, if we have to keep, like stay under, there's a certain number we have to hit that's tied to funding, but I don't know if that's everywhere. And so, yeah, if we can have 10% of students not qualify for free reduced lunch at a site, or even 15 or 20, I think that would for me, that would make me feel better or worse about this. If we didn't screen for upfront, but then didn't have a requirement, then it wouldn't matter, I think, because we probably get majority low income, there's still some over income, but vast majority over. But, if we're trying to be equitable, probably, we should look at that at some point, and it will come up for college. So I don't know, just wondering.
Yeah, that's a good question for me to bring back to the dev team. I think a lot of our funding depends on the student population that we serve. And I don't know that it would be a deal breaker if we served, if 15% of our students were above the like income levels of the rest of our students. But similar questions were coming up for me around like back to this group about how many applicants do you see that are above the guidelines? Is it a lot? Is it a small number? Then it also makes me think about our general strategy too, and the work that y'all are doing in the Bay Area, right? To prioritize schools and lots of different metrics of need. Because then, to me, if we're prioritizing schools and communities where the need is high among a diverse set of criteria, then it matters less if there are a few outliers. So yeah, I don't know. This topic does bring up a lot of questions and considerations.
Just in response to your question, Alex, I think the fact that schools, so I tell my schools, like we have a very small number of spots for over income students, and so the fact that it's highlighted, I think, prevents a lot of over income students from applying because the school's also aware of that. So I have a hard time like feeling like that's a true representation of what could happen if we just removed it, because it's there, and so some students just know they're over income and just kind of disqualify themselves from applying.
So that's a good point. So if we're saying that the recommendation, the eligibility criteria is the same, like our eligibility criteria isn't changing, and we're still messaging that table, of the income levels from the federal government, The difference is we're not asking for the confirmation via like a 1040 form in the to submit the application, because the biggest barrier, the biggest drop we see is from nomination to application. So if we can like lift out that, maybe is there even another time during the outreach process that we could collect that, income is, there are implications. I'm thinking like, what if we collected it in the interview? But then there are implications too, because what if you spend a lot of time, they're labor intensive, you're coordinating it, you have an interview, and then the student's not eligible. So there's like, I guess I feel stuck to like, what is the solution if like the barrier is removing it from the actual application to encourage more students to apply? Where would we get it if it's important?
Sorry to cut you off, Alex. I was in a meeting with a referral partner, and they were talking about this too. I was in it like this morning, in a debrief, and one of the ways that I was thinking is that they recommended was, but I don't know what capacity wise, like what this looks like at different outreach teams. Like I think back to outreach season, and we're like pretty busy, but they were saying if there's a way to like, yes, have students say like yes, whether or not they are free reduced lunch, and then follow up with the parents during the enrollment period, like during when the kids are getting a call for the parent to confirm they want to be in the program, and then we explain to the parent like, hey, you have to qualify. Here's you need to send in to qualify, and then it could be like a conversation with an adult, less than a conversation with with a student, or for a student to kind of just figure out on their own. But that then would require us to like have a conversation with a parent or guardian for almost every student, which would be like a lot of work, maybe. But if that was a thing added to the mentor table and something was taken off, then maybe that is a way to do it. Like have it be a part of the enrollment period, because I feel like there is a lot of stuff, like there's barriers to application alone, and then once you enroll, there's barriers to enrolling, which is getting the application in and of itself, and then getting it. And so if we add financial stuff in there, it might feel like all the paperwork's happening at once as opposed to in the beginning and again during enrollment. And so maybe that will make kids feel like it's less of a thing But I'm curious what other folks think. That was just a thought that I had leaving that meeting. I was like, what if we just did, financial docs during enrollment? It also mean we probably would have to take in a lot more students to, just in case we have like a ton of kids who are over income. But just a thought about how to make it work, because it sounds like we all, that's like the hardest part is how do we do it? Also, at schools, at one school, they were like, we'll just write letters saying they all qualify for free reduced lunch at Brighton, where they but I don't know if that's something that we want to take on as like, if we want to just, like, would our donors then ask, like, if we're saying all the kids on free reduced lunch because the school said it, do we just, wash our hands after that, or do we, so that's all I have to say.
Yeah, Armani, that last point is one that like some of our peer organizations, like One Goal, they approach it that way, where they just get confirmation from the school about like their students being eligible for FRL. And your question, that point makes me wonder, like, where does this decision lie? I thought this was an NAPT PSL like discussion decision, but you're right. Maybe this is actually like an SMT conversation, at least, if not decision, because there are like broader implications that are funding dependent.
Right. Because I wonder about the, sorry, no, keep going. Whoever was supposed.
Oh, I was just gonna say, if it does get to the SMT level, we would need, either we or the individual EDs would need to collect information about how the district does free and reduced lunch, which is like my only issue. That's our only issue in Boston, is a student who's a family of two and has $100,000 income still qualifies for free and reduced lunch, because Boston Public does universal free and reduced lunch. So my only point is, if it gets to that level, just to make sure that they have information about each of our different school districts, so that it's not just like, a decision that's just made and it has other implications as far as like the students we're taking in.
Yeah, that's a great point.
At one of our schools, they were willing to write to be like, hey, we're like, all of our kids are, qualified. But then we could have went back with one of those students and actually seen that they, their parent made $100K, And
Right.
so it's like who's I guess fault at this point? Does that like fall into that we took in a kid that we're saying is that we're serving a kid who's clearly not low income and yeah. So that would be a thing that maybe SMT or someone else.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to just pause for a second because I know Brendan's planning on joining in about 6 minutes to talk about the video. I just want to see, is this, so this is definitely a conversation we need to continue, and I wonder if maybe I need to summarize it and send it to the department leads in PSL ahead of Thursday. I don't know, I might need some thought partnership from the others on that APT and also see if like where the decision lies here, confirm that. But I just wonder, for the other pieces, for the application itself and moving to an online application, is there agreement about that?
Yes.
Or yes, from Boston.
Hell yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Okay.
I would also
good.
add with the application, like thinking about different ways. Like we've had talks in our revisions about like discontinuing the essay questions,
Yes.
or rewriting them or figuring that out. I think that's something that we want to do. And then also we wanted to talk about like duplication of services. That's something that's come up and something that Boston also mentioned. And naming that on the application, how that could be helpful, or giving examples for students of what, because oftentimes when we have kids, we have, let's say we have slots for 10 kids and 30 kids apply, we're going to weed out kids that are already in duplicative programming. So getting that to be transparent on the front end for young folks and their families to understand, I think could be really beneficial.
Alex, I don't know if we already have this information, but it would be really helpful to know which pieces of the application are like non-negotiable and which ones are. So like adding in like a duplication of services question, I would hope that that's like something that each site could have control over versus like we obviously, right, like have to like have the student fill out their date of birth in school, which feels like the non-negotiable. So if we could have like a clear idea, I think that would be helpful, at least for me, as we try to like make the application more accessible to more students.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Snap.
Go ahead, Bradley.
No, I just said snaps. Like I agree.
Snap. Okay. Yeah, we haven't done that. I think that's a great idea. It feels like both these things, like modifying the essay question and like an explicit place for duplicating services, I feel like those are fine. Like to me, I don't see any flags about having that option on there, especially if everyone agrees with both of those. Like if everyone is like, let's change the essay questions to be this, or let's not have them, then that's even easier. The only question mark for me is now thinking about moving to an online application with form assembly. Just what would it take to have different applications for every site? I don't know about the mechanics of that, with doing something new. So I could ask Roxanne, and that's probably possible. I just don't know like what that would entail to have a different like application for everyone. But I made a note of that here. We could review that and identify what's like flexible and for sites to decide. I guess I wonder, like, if we made all these changes to the online app, if we moved it to online, if we changed or eliminated the essay, if we added the point about duplicating services, I guess I'm realizing that maybe it's possible for us to decide on this income question and make it possible and amenable to every site. And it's also possible that maybe it won't be figured out this year. I don't know. It could be. I'm just thinking out loud. If it's not possible and we prioritize that for FY21, how much of a concern is that? We probably don't have to get there yet. We can have this conversation with the PSLs and then figure that out. I'm just thinking out loud. Okay. The one thing we didn't talk about yet were the pilot. Bay Area, are you all still considering no interviews for FY20?
Wait, Alex, I wanted to pause.
Yeah.
With the online
sure.
application,
Mm-hmm.
how long would that take to do an online application? Like, how fast would that turnaround be? Like, 'cause it seems like that could be like, yeah, I'm just curious about that. And like, would that affect the timeline? Will we be able to do it in time still?
Today, Runxwan and I are going to talk about that and also texting in prep for our call Thursday. She and Amanda did a successful test with the end of summer survey using Form Assembly, which is the technology that we have integrated to Salesforce already, and it worked out really well and was pretty seamless. So I think it'll not take a lot of time to build that based on their experience with that survey. Yeah, and I can ask Runx on this specific question about like what would it mean if there were different applications for every site.
Yeah, I think it's great that we're going to the online one. I'm curious if you if there's thoughts from other sites / from you guys around, if that means that it's all online or if it's online and we can also do paper and a space to input it like manually. Because I think it would be nice to have both, but if we went one or the other, it would just be good to know if we're going to be able to do both or not. Yeah.
My recommendation is that we would do online only, and that's because we tested in the pilot doing both, and what we found was that because we offered both, what the default was for students and staff was the paper one, so nobody filled out the online application. And actually, Bethany, we had somebody wrote on here updates from New York about their online apps, and she and I talked about that when we were together in New York recently, and she said the same thing happened to them, where they had an option for an online Google Doc, but everybody just did paper because they offered paper. So I think since we've learned that lesson now like twice, right. I would say we should probably just stick with one. Now, one option could be, though, like if there was a site that did not, it'd be great to do it universally, but if for some reason there was a site that did not want to do it, that could be something we explore where one site sticks with paper this year because there's too many other new things going on. Yeah, yep.
And I know you and I have been messaging about this, Alex, but there's a Form Assembly. I haven't looked into it at all. Do they have a signing feature? I imagine they will. Like, is that?
I sent that DocuSign link you shared with me, Armani, to Runxwan. So we're going to talk about that when we.
So you guys haven't decided. Yeah, it hasn't been discovered. I'm just wondering because I've never heard of that one, but as long as there's a way to still sign with the online application, that'll be important.
Yeah, that will be important. Otherwise, it's like, yeah, it still has that barrier for students and families if that part's not easy. All right, Brendan should be helping on in just a second, unless you're here, Brendan.
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Hey, we can hear you.
Let me try to get on video. Hello, everyone.
Hey, Brendan. Welcome to the Outreach Cohort. You have others on the phone, not on video, too. So we're all here and ready to talk about the video.
Great. So yeah, I guess we got about 10 minutes, right? Cool. So I'll try to be as quick as possible. So we're super excited to be able to work on this project. I know we've got the kind of video brief, so I've looked through that and we've got kind of a rough outline of things. So today I just want to try to get a quick sense from everybody on a couple of things so I can finalize, or I can recommend a timeline, and then we can all, so after this call, I'll follow up with the timeline and some more specific instructions, but trying to figure out what's going to work best for everybody to get this ready for next outreach season. So the first kind of broader question I have is, I have a little bit of a sense of what the sort of goal of the video is, but trying to get a sense of how it would be used. Is it meant to be shown in an actual presentation? Is it sent ahead of a presentation? Is it sent afterwards? Is it kind of all of the above? So just looking for some context on how you guys are going to use it.
That's Christopher.
Here in Philly, Brendan, thanks for joining the call. I think we're all of the above. Just wanting to just get our presence known. So whether it's students, parents, teachers, so they just have an idea of like what we do and what's important about our program, what's unique about it.
And then she said that's also a perfect response for somebody wearing that outfit. Great. Okay.
This is Martina in Boston. So we've tried using a video before, and what we ran into is that audio visual at schools is unreliable. So for us, I would imagine being able to email it to partners, maybe have it up on the Boston page of the website.
I told you, Bay Area.
Like both before, so emailing it before and after a presentation, or RPs being able to have the link, and if a student wasn't able to be at the presentation, they can have quick access to that, would be like the biggest use for us, just because of the issues we ran into 2 years ago trying to do like a video during presentation.
Gotcha. Okay, that's helpful. Any other thoughts that weren't shared by those folks? Thoughts or concerns in terms of like the logistics of using a video?
Yeah, that echo in the Bay. Oh, go ahead, Sean. Is that you?
Go ahead, Bradley. I wasn't trying to talk.
Oh, you weren't? Okay. No, I would say that there is definitely some issue with the audiovisual at schools, but we would like, yeah, I think what we're foreseeing with the video is to show it during the presentation, and to get as much. I think it'd be great to have like student. Well, you're asking about, you're not asking about content, you're more asking about delivery of and like placement of the video, right?
Yeah, I guess with this question, but my next question is a little bit related to content, so feel free to go there too.
Okay. Yeah, we would love to, yeah, we want this to show this video. We want it to be fun and engaging. Part of our revision was I'm glad this is happening, was to contact the marketing team and understand like what can we do with the video. Wanting it to be fun, wanting it to be customized to the communities that we're in as well. And for the Bay, like I said, we're in so many different regions, so it'd be cool to have like a shot or two of different like landmarks or kind of cultural kind of cultural themes are specific to certain communities. And then, yeah, content, I love to have the different students kind of speaking about their trips, the mentoring, and having alumni speak about their experience too, and the kind of the holistic kind of like result of the program too would be great. Yeah, I don't know. Did we miss anything? I'm just trying to remember that meeting, what we talked about.
The other thing would be, I think we also want the video to be able to target like the multiple audiences, so that like teachers can also, or like our referral partners can also use it as a teaching method for like staff on campus, which we're not sure if that's going to be all, like if that can fit in one video or we're going to have to do more than one. But yeah, we wanted to be able to engage like, students, our referral partners and staff to get an idea of like who Summer Search is and what qualities we're looking for in students.
Thank you guys. So yeah, I guess moving into the sort of content part, I believe when we had our initial conversation with the NAPT is, I think just feasibility wise, it's probably going to only be able to be one version of a video, but we definitely want to be as inclusive as possible of all the, the sort of, Bradley, what you're talking about with visuals from all of our locations, or as many as we can get. And then trying to also have this be helpful and relevant to all, like both students, parents, and teachers and referral partners, as you guys said. So it's definitely a lot to try to get into a video, but I think we can do it. And I think, and so maybe one sort of content question we can get into just quickly is in terms of like priorities of, so my understanding is that, the students don't, or the sort of outcomes aren't as appealing as the the information about the program, the mentoring, and sort of the, I guess the, the trips and what that kind of will look like. In terms of the sort of the requirements for the program and things like that, if, I guess what I'm trying to ask is like, do we feel like that also has to be in the video, or if the sort of the list of requirements can be a supplement to what the video is, which could be just kind of like exciting content about what summer search is. Is that something that could work, or it's I guess maybe I don't fully understand the requirement part. I don't know. We don't have a ton of time, but if that can't be answered. Go ahead, Armani.
Are we still wondering about having, or is there still a thought to have a different video per site, or are we saying, or I guess from what I'm hearing, that you want to do one video across the sites? Because I think at least in Boston, Martina, correct me if I'm wrong, but we like the video that we have currently, like the student and the alumni one, that although it just isn't Boston enough, it's like very California, it's the family from California, everything's California. So if we just had something similar that was Boston, that would be fine. I don't know that we're looking for something that we play at we're definitely not looking for something that we play at a presentation. And I haven't heard Martina and I talk about the like wanting there to be like application requirements in the video. It's more so like of an exciting thing, a student exciting thing. But that's like for us what we desire. So I don't know if we're doing 4 different ones. I'd say we wouldn't want one that has requirements in it, but we want more of the get excited, and then we talk at the kids about the requirements with the referral partner, and that would probably be green longer just because dates and stuff aren't in there. But in terms of being reusable more years. But if other sites are looking for that specifically and they feel like they would need it, like I'm not going to think that. Like, yeah, go for it. But I don't know if that's what we have in the budget. If it's 4 videos or 1 video, or 5 videos. I forget how many sites we have. So yeah, that's my thought.
Yeah, good question. So yeah, I think right now it seems like budget and time wise, it's going to be just 1 video, which we are going to, like I said, try to be as inclusive as possible and get like enough, to your point, like a lot of our videos in, like the gala video is very Bay heavy. So we want to get more content in there. So I know we're running out of time, so if I could pause you on that, or we can.
That's good. You answered my questions.
Okay, great. But I'm happy to kind of talk more too as we kind of get down the line with the script and content. So the other question is moving into like actual filming. So wanting to get a sense from this group on what sites could support filming. I could definitely work with all of you or whoever at the sites is needed to kind of connect with a videographer and how to kind of go about that. But and then so filming would be sort of 2 things, I guess. One is B-roll, just kind of shots of the office of folks interacting, not necessarily recording audio. And then another would be interviewing, which would take a little bit more kind of time and direction, I guess, which again I can support with. But so what sites can feel like they could help film or support filming?
Sorry, if anybody else wants to go, just cut me off. But I'm like, is there a way that we could do it with like this year, this video is for 1 site, and then the next year we have to do a video per site, so we end up with 4 videos per site? Because I personally feel like it would still be very powerful to have a Boston specific video for the program, and I don't know, I'd be willing to either wait or be set like next year, but I don't know. I don't know. I feel like the one we have, it'd be cool to make. Yeah, I guess making a cross site one would be cool too. But if there's a way to think about in the future still doing a site one, that feels like something that is would be very useful. Because I think if we had a Boston / California, Philadelphia one, it still might feel not as relevant to the kids because it has so many locations. But that just is my thought coming from our mom only. I don't know if other people feel that way. But yeah, just wanted to make sure it's said or requested.
Yeah, I think we talked about that, Brendan, when we met with the Marcom team about for this fiscal year doing the 1 video because of feasibility, but building into the budget considerations for next year, making more videos. I think we can lift that up in the budget process. Does that sound right to you? Okay.
I would co-sign Armani. Like, I think for us, because of the issues we run into with audio visual in presentations, like we would be okay with postponing for a year and that would actually give us more time to do a better job of catching the B-roll, because that's what I'm most concerned about, is the timeline that we have to do that in, and getting it done. I'd rather do it well than to rush to have it ready for this year. But that's just from Boston's perspective.
Okay, thanks. Any other thoughts? Whether it's wanting to like feel, if you guys feel similar to Armani and Martina, or other thoughts.
I think for the Bay, we would like a video this year. And the content meaning of just like kind of excitement. We wouldn't necessarily need requirements, just like getting excited for the program, talking about the program. And yeah, I think we just we're ready to move with the video piece, even, so and then we can definitely help out with the video too. We have definitely staff that are ready to support, and I have a little capacity, and I don't want to speak for Chano, but yeah, do you have any thoughts, Chano, on that?
Besides, I think that we could definitely help out with getting the filming. I mean, I think with a lot of our referral partners, they're pretty open to us being on campus and doing that type of stuff. So I think I'm all for it.
Cool, great. Tolu, any thoughts on Philly?
I mean, I just really just want a video. That's all. A lot of times a kid was like, so what's up? Like, where can I visually see that? So like, I don't feel like I'm too picky. It would be cool to have landmarks, but just like just all around video, just like with that's more up to date, that speaks to like students that look like them.
Tolu,
I think it would be good.
This is Armani. Tolu, have you seen the one that we have currently? I'm curious because
yeah,
we do have it.
I have, and like I think it's like similar to what you were saying before. I feel it's more of like a West Coast feel to it.
Yeah, right.
So like that was the other aspect of it. So I don't show that as much. Like I'll send it out to RPs as something to like pass on to teachers, or like someone who's like new on board to like get them more familiarized with the program. But for students, it hasn't landed the way it should have a lot of times. Which is not like to knock on the efforts or anything. I think it's well done. I think it's just like it's more so just like, yeah, they're not relating to it because it doesn't feel like any place they know and see. And like a lot of the stuff we ask for in this program is about comfort level. So like if they can't relate or feel like something that's like them, they're like, that's very new. I don't know if this program's even real because all the things you're telling me right now is too good to be true or too outside my comfort zone. So like it has to be something where they feel like, oh, that's tangible. Like I know this. I feel this.
If we could only have one this year, would you be willing to wait for next year, or do you feel like you guys like today you all like need it like this year? Sorry, my bad.
Oh no, I could wait. We we could wait. Yeah, we're not. Yeah, we could wait.
Okay, make sure I'm okay. I am not muted. Great, thank you guys. That is helpful feedback. I know it might be overtime now. The other question, so I guess related to, Boston, Philly, you guys are okay with waiting. So in terms of, I guess, Bay Area, maybe in terms of this call, I could follow up with you guys directly on exact timing when you would need it. My understanding is late August is when this would be needed. And Alex, we can circle back to on how we want to approach this too. Because we could kind of do a number of things, as Alex was saying, like we could get an inclusive video this year, and then still kind of follow up with other, you know, more specific videos in the future, or we could sort of do whatever, kind of cobble together what we can kind of do right now. Maybe it's sounding like maybe just sort of with existing footage and maybe new Bay Area stuff, and then tackle you know, a Boston, Philly, potentially Seattle kind of specific versions down the road. What I was hearing. So, I guess I will. So I'll follow up. that makes sense with timing of this meeting. Alex.
And also, Brennan, Bethany's not here today too. She has a sick kid at home, so I think they did want a video this year, but I think following up with each site makes sense. And I'm in favor of doing something this year just because we found the money and you're willing to make the time. So that's my 2 cents.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thanks everybody. So I'll follow up both specifically to kind of the folks here and then to sort of the group as well. My goal is to figure out a timeline for this year, and then, you know, kind of also potentially some stuff for future years. And then in terms of this year, there's more logistics around that too. So I'll be in touch. Any kind of questions relating to all that at the moment?
Would it be possible to get just like a rough draft of what an individual site would need to do to capture B-roll for the inclusive video? Because I think I may be imagining more like work and capacity than it actually takes. And so if you have any kind of like rough draft of that would be super helpful.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. Yeah. So I'll send everyone something that, as if we were kind of moving forward with the full sort of all-inclusive thing, is I think there's levels of like what can be contributed, and hopefully some cliffs are lighter than others. So I will definitely send that.
Thank you.
Yeah, because I think I want to make sure that it's like I think a all-inclusive one from all the sites would be useful. So not to say that we shouldn't have it, but a very specific one would be more useful. So yeah, if there's any way to make the all one happen, but I don't care about the orders, but yeah, don't. Thank you, Brendan.
Thank you. Great. Thanks everybody. I'll be in touch, and feel free to also reach out to me if you have any specific questions as well.
Thanks, Brennan, for helping create this and meeting it with us today. And thanks everyone for staying a little later. I know our earlier conversation took us into this hour, but we'll see each other again Thursday with the PSLs. Okay.
Have a good one, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, Cohort. Bye, Brendan.
Bye.
See ya.
Thank you, Alex.